You're listening to the Let's Be Real podcast. Now, here's your host, Andy Hughes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special video edition of the Let's Be Real podcast. My guest right now is a best-selling author and speaker that focuses on leadership, culture, and teamwork. You've probably seen his work on national TV, national newspapers. He's written over 15 books and has worked with professional sports teams, universities, and multiple Fortune 500 companies. He also hosts the Positive University podcast. We're very pleased to welcome Jon Gordon to the Let's Be Real podcast. Jon, how are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to have you. And before we start to talk a little bit about leadership and culture, I think it's important to hear your story and hear what your journey was like to where you are now, because sometimes people think that leaders and speakers, they were born this way. You know, as soon as they were born, they could speak, they could lead, but that's not always the case, is it?
No, not at all. I grew up Long Island, New York, Jewish Italian family, a lot of food, a lot of guilt. Dad was a New York City police officer, undercover narcotics. So didn't grow up in a very positive environment, a very loving environment, but not very positive. So I'm not naturally positive. I have to work really hard at it to be a more positive person. And around 30 years old, I had two small children, a wife. She came up to me one day and she said, I love you, but I'm not going to spend my life with someone who makes me so miserable. You need to change. And so I agreed to change. And that began this journey of, researching ways that I could be more positive. This was during the emerging field of positive psychology. And so I wanted to be more positive. I had these research-backed ideas. I started to practice these ideas. And from there, I started to share what I was doing. I started a positive tip newsletter. And every week I would send out this newsletter. 5 subscribers initially, my mother, my brother, best friend from college. They were getting the newsletter whether they liked it or not. And then over time, it just started to spread. And so it's led me to write all these books that I've written, started giving all these talks, wrote The Energy Bus. That really was a defining moment because that book came out and coaches started reading it, leaders started reading it, a lot of organizations started to use it, started to see impact from it. And so it brought me to all these different conferences and leadership events, and also companies that were now implementing the Energy Bus in their organization. So it's been exciting to see. It's been a great journey. The Energy Bus is actually more popular now than it was even 12 years ago, which is wild. But it allows me to continue to do this work. And we're really about building positive leaders, developing these leaders, helping them build great teams, and then together doing so in a positive way.
Yeah, that's tremendous. It's really cool to hear your story, and you've written so many fantastic books. Let's start there with the positive leadership. That's obviously something that you stress a lot in a lot of your books. What does a positive leader look like to you? I mean, what do you have to do to become positive? Because it's not just something that you can just do one day and be positive. Like, I'm sure there's a process to it as well.
Yeah, it's not where you're, bouncing off the walls and a rah-rah kind of guy. You don't even have to be an extrovert to be a positive leader. You could be an introvert. But when I think of positive leadership, I think of Dabo Swinney. He's a great example of positive leadership. I know him really well. I've worked with Clemson football for the past 8 years now, and he leads with a lot of optimism, a lot of belief. He believes in his team more than they believe in themselves, and it's one of the reasons why they're so successful. He had a vision of what he wanted to build. He cast that vision. He ignited that vision. He shared that vision with everyone and rallied them towards that vision. So he's transformed a university, not just a football program, but a university from his leadership. And I would even say a state, because the state of South Carolina has been impacted by his leadership. Now, he also leads with a lot of love and accountability. So he's not just rah-rah, he's not just positive, but he is calling you to be great. And he will call you out, or let's say call you up to be great if you're not acting in a way that needs to be executed in order to make the team better. Like the guy who actually got a penalty on the field, punching someone in the field, he made that guy a few weeks ago take a separate bus home. They flew home. This guy had to actually drive home with the equipment managers and all the equipment on the way home. So he's really big on accountability, but he will love you in the process, and his players know that he loves them. Alan Mulally is another positive leader. He took over Ford in 2006. They were losing $14 billion, and he had them profitable in a few short years. It was one of the greatest leadership feats in history, what he accomplished. And he defines his leadership style as positive leadership. So he's an incredible leader. Again, also a lot of love and accountability. Donna Orander, she took over the WNBA, and she transformed the WNBA through her leadership, her belief, her optimism. A lot of people didn't think that the WNBA could be successful. And she saw the passion and the belief in the players and coaches. And she knew she just needed to get the organization on board to really work together to fulfill the vision and the mission that they had. And that's what they've done over the years. So she really laid the groundwork for that. So many other leaders along the way, but when you think about what is positive leadership, it's someone who takes on the challenges, takes on the negativity, takes on the adversity, rallies their team together, and with vision and optimism and real belief and real faith and real actionable strategies to develop a great team through communication, connection, commitment, and caring, and a lot of excellence, they accomplish amazing things. That's positive leadership.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Those are all great leaders. Now, one of the things when we think about the workplace, there always can be some negativity. You know, some people may focus on complaining instead of the solutions. I think that's one thing that I've really been able to think about and really inspired me too, is really just thinking about, like, let's focus on the solutions, not complaining. How important is that? And how important is it for a leader to be able to turn that negativity into a positive?
Yeah, well, leaders don't complain. Leaders focus on solutions. And they also utilize complaints in their organization or from their team as a catalyst for new ideas, new innovations, or better ways of doing things. So PPR, for instance, was a company that invented the no complaining rule. I wrote a book called The No Complaining Rule based on this company and the leadership of this company. And Dwight Cooper, the CEO, said, hey, we have this rule that if you have a complaint, we want to hear it, but you must also come with a solution. So we're not allowed to have any mindless complaining or venting. We want you to complain, but let's look for ways to get better, to improve, and innovations that will help us grow. So everything they do is geared towards improvement, and they get rid of mindless complaining in the process. And they also interview people, and when they interview for jobs, they say, hey, we have a no complaining rule. If you're a complainer, this is probably not the right place for you. So they get rid of a lot of complainers right then and there. But everyone in the organization knows they have this rule. And it really empowers people to start thinking of ways to improve the company. And it gets everyone thinking positively instead of negatively, right? Because we know that in dysfunctional organizations, we have all these people who are complaining all the time about problems. We know in great organizations, we have people who are solving problems. So essential for leaders to confront the negativity, deal with it, and then overcome it. Because the biggest mistake that leaders make is they don't address the negativity that exists on their teams and in their organization. So we're really big on helping leaders do that and helping teams do that to build stronger teams and develop better leaders.
Yeah, and all that negativity can be really unhealthy too. I mean, it could ruin teams, it could ruin a lot of relationships, and really ruin the overall culture. And, you know, culture is just so important in the workplace, isn't it?
Yeah, it starts with culture. You know, culture drives everything. Culture drives expectations and beliefs. Expectations and beliefs drive behaviors. Behaviors drive habits, and habits create the future. So it all starts with the culture that we create and who are we? What do we want to be known for? What do we stand for? Hey, we're an organization that's about positivity. We're not going to allow negativity to sabotage our team and our organization. So when you do things at the cultural level and everyone understands this is how we do things here, you start to build a great culture that everyone is really focused on doing the right things in the right way. And that's when you have success over time. You can see an organization that has a great culture. You know, everyone has a mission statement today, but only the great organizations have people who are on a mission.
Very well said. Yeah. And, you know, when thinking about culture, these great organizations, when they have a good culture, they're able to give opportunities to people that, you know, deserve it, and they're empowering themselves. To me, I think that is just huge in, you know, today's world, to give people the opportunity to empower them, you know, to do great things. And one of the things that I like to say on this podcast, and I'm sure you would agree too, that you can be a leader in any role. You don't necessarily have to be a manager. You don't have to have direct reports. It doesn't matter what role you're in. You can always be a leader.
Yeah, I love that. Even if you influence one person, you are a leader. So it's about leading from inside, who you are on the inside, and then you have a ripple effect on the people on the outside. In the power of positive leadership, we have a model, and it's leading from the inside out. And the model just starts with you, and then your influence on others is how you impact others. So leadership begins with the people that you impact, and you don't need a title, right, to be a leader. I'm sure you say that often, and that's really important.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think, sometimes we think about titles too much. I mean, no matter what your title is, you can be a leader. So I think, yeah, that's definitely a great message. Now, one of the things too that I liked the energy bus was amazing. One thing I liked about that was you talk about the 3 C's to get on the bus: communication, coaching, and caring. And you talk a little bit about, it's all about like the little things. When we think about culture and we think about happiness at work, it really is just the sum of all the little things, isn't it? It's not always just about all these big things. It's just all the little things put together.
Yeah, leadership is all about, communication, right? One-on-one communication, making sure that negativity doesn't fill the void of communication, because where there's a void in communication, negativity will fill it. So it's about making sure that we're communicating in such a way that we don't have those voids. It's making sure we're taking the time to connect one-on-one with the people that we lead. Even 10 minutes, a little thing, 10-minute meeting with one person you lead each day. Pick one person every day and have a 10-minute meeting with them and have a great conversation with them. That will improve your relationship. It will improve the connection, which then improves the commitment. So the more committed you are, right, the more committed, the more success you'll create. But you'll never have commitment without connection. So you need the connection to build the commitment. So it is all these little things. It's coaching, right? Making sure that in today's world, it's not just about big vision. That's macro leadership. It's also about micro leadership, helping to execute on the vision. And yes, we say, well, managers need to do that. I'm convinced more than ever that as a leader, you need to lead your direct reports. You need to coach them and help them get better, help them improve, and make them better leaders so that they can then lead their direct reports. So we have to cascade leadership down the organization so everyone is improving as a result of the influence we have on others.
Absolutely. And, I think one of the other things that I like that you talk a lot about in some of your books, you say, focus on the process, not the outcome. I think a lot of times when maybe you're doing a project, you don't get the results. Maybe you apply for a job, you don't get it. A lot of times, it's normal to be emotional right away, but I think it's also important to look at it as a process. Okay, yes, I was able to do an interview. I gained some interview experience, and look at it like that way. And then it's a process, because if you continue to focus on the process and improve your craft, eventually the results will come.
Yeah, anything worthwhile takes time to build. So it is a process. I think we live in a world where everyone wants success right now. It took 5 years for the Energy Bus to become a bestseller. It took years for me to get going as a writer and speaker. I went all over the country. I mean, I went to places that you wouldn't even bring your dog and stayed in these hotels that were not very good. But I was out there doing the work, sharing the message. It's like the band that starts out in the small little cities and they're working on their craft and they get better. They play bigger venues and then they get a name and they start playing bigger venues. And then over time they have this large following, but it started by just working on your craft, getting better every day. And as you said, focus on the process. We got to have a big vision of what we want to create. It's okay to have that big vision, but we have to have the microscope, which allows us to take the zoom focus actions we need to realize that big picture vision in the telescope. So it's telescope, microscope, big picture, zoom focus actions to get better.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you've worked with a lot of sports teams, universities. What have been some of the challenges on working with some of the organizations you work with? Because I'm sure there's a lot of different personalities and you have a lot of different people that you have to talk to. What were some of the challenges going through that process?
Well, I spoke to the Cleveland Browns this year, actually. So talk about different personalities, but they were really great guys. They really were a great group, and I'm surprised they're not playing as well, because I know that they do care and they really have in some ways, really not allowed the negativity to sabotage them. You're not hearing a lot of guys complaining, and you're not hearing those negative voices you might have heard of in the past. So that tells me that's a good sign in some ways. But I think the biggest challenge is to get everyone, on the bus, moving in the right direction with a shared vision, focus, and purpose, really getting everyone aligned where they put we before me. Worked with the LA Rams the last 3 years, and that's been a model that Sean McVay implemented from the very beginning. We before me. So we got to put the team first. And we're naturally self-focused. So it's hard to put we before me, right? You take a picture with you and a group of friends. When you look at the picture, who do you look at first? You look at yourself. So we're naturally self-focused. So we have to learn to be servant leaders. We have to learn to put the team first and really focus on how can I make the team better. But the great thing is when you do that and you get a group of people that are committed to we before me, everyone gets better. So the team gets better, but then you get better individually. So when I serve the team, when I help the team grow, I grow. When I help the team improve, I improve. It's just the way it happens. So if we can spread this to more and more people, we'll get better teammates and better teams.
We certainly will. We can always use. You can never have too many great teams. So
we need more of them.
We do. We definitely do. So, and the one thing that I also really like that you do, obviously you have a lot of great books for adults, but I also like the fact that you take the time to, make illustrated books for kids. How important is that aspect of it as well? Because, the kids are growing up. I think it's great that you're kind of exposing them to this stuff as well, because I think it's so important. I mean, this is the future of our world here that we're dealing with.
Yeah, it's just been fun to write children's books and have them learn the messages that adults are learning. And it really is a universal message and applies to all ages. So you could take one concept and break it down so that a child can understand it and an adult could use it. So it's really cool that I'm able to take these concepts and share them with people of all ages. And I just love doing that. So pretty exciting when you get a call from a parent, hey, my daughter, or my son, they read your book and it's their favorite book. They love reading The Energy Bus for Kids at Night, or The Hard Hat for Kids, or we just came out with, you'll see that in the back, this is the new book, One Word for Kids. So just came out teaching kids how to come up with their words. So, I want to make a difference in teams. I want to make a difference with businesses, but to know that you made a difference with a family, that you helped the family get better. You helped the family stay together. You impacted children that were going through a tough time, and those kids become future leaders that will impact the world. Nothing's better than that. And, in a selfish way, and this is just a joke, but I'm also trying to ensure my future because my hope is that when I'm 70, these kids will be CEOs and will be hiring me to come in to speak to their companies when they're leaders.
That's a good strategy. I like that.
I'm kidding, of course, but I do have a vision because I speak to a lot of college athletes, and I'm thinking, wow, these are the leaders of the future, and they're amazing. And, they're like, hey, I remember when Jon Gordon came in when I was like 18, and now they're like 38, 48. And maybe at 80, hopefully I'll still be speaking and have a job as a result of that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's great. That's a great point, though. I mean, these kids, they may look back and say, wow, that book changed my life. I interviewed Sean Casey recently, and he talked about a book that changed his life. I mean, that's pretty normal, I think. And, so I think it's awesome that you're putting those out there. And I do see the background. You have the new book. Could you tell us a little bit more about the new book that was just released?
Well, it's based on our one word book for adults. And the idea is that one word will change your life. If you pick a word for the year, every year you pick one word, that will be your driving force for that year. Resolutions do not work. We fail with our resolutions. 99% of people fail with their New Year's resolutions. Half fail by the end of January. So we don't even make it out of the first month. But one word sticks. So you pick a word for the year that will drive you, that will give you meaning and mission and passion and purpose. Can't tell you what that word is, but each year there's a word that's meant for you if you're open, and you pick it and you live it. And so we've had all these people pick their words. It's really cool. Deshaun Watson, Clemson, year they won the national championship, his word was legendary. Before that last play to beat Alabama in the championship game, before that last drive, he said, let's go be legendary. I mean, it was the fulfillment of a word lived, and he really became legendary in that moment. Dabo Swinney picks a word each year. After the national championship, he said, my word all year has been joy. First championship they won was love. So it's fun to have them pick their words. A lot of leaders do this. A lot of companies do it. They put up the words, and in their offices, on some of their products, you name it. It's been a really cool thing. So the idea is pick a word, but now we can do it for children. So this is a story of a young boy named Stevie who has to go on a journey to find his word, on a quest, and it's how he finds it. And then he shares it with his class and his soccer coach, and the one word spread. So just a fun book. I wrote it with two guys who really have been doing the one word concept for over 20 years now. And they're good friends of mine, and they deserve all the credit for this one word idea. I just took it and started popularizing it, but they did a great job with it. So we wrote the one word book together, and then we just wrote the one word kids book together. Dan Britt and Jimmy Page, really great guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, everybody watching this, definitely check that out, especially if you have kids. That's definitely an awesome thing to get. Now, also, Jon, obviously we've been focusing on the workplace, but I think a lot of these principles can work at home as well. It's not just limited to work. It's also, you can do this at home as well and, be successful.
No, totally. That's what's great about, these ideas is that, I have a couple that said, hey, I read the Energy Bus and, we're doing it together and we're reading it together. And so it's almost like you have a team at work and you do a book study and you talk about the book. Well, you could do this in your family as well. And so I love hearing from families that they're doing this stuff together. Heard from a dad, both of his sons are playing Division I sports. One's a football player, the other's a basketball player. He said, I've been sharing your messages with them for a while now. Then I heard from the son, asking for some advice. So, just cool things like that when you see families using your ideas and concepts, and it's making them better. And, I have a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old, and, we are not a perfect family by any means. And I've really used a lot of these principles in my family, and it's made us a lot stronger. There's no doubt it's made us stronger. My wife and I are writing a book called Relationship Grit, and about sticking together, staying together through the challenges. So we're writing about that. But I do wish my kids would have listened to me more, because I think they'd be in a better place even right now if they would.
Well, no, that's pretty cool though that you're writing a book on relationships too. I'm sure that will be awesome. And another thing too that I just remember now, you also said in training camp, your book, you talk about outworking everybody, and I think you told a story about Will Smith, who said that he would basically outwork anybody. That has to be another important element of this as well, because if you're if you're trying to outwork everybody, you're really going to get good results if everybody on the team is doing that.
Yeah, definitely have to work hard. No one creates success without hard work. So hard work is important to success. It's not everything, but everyone I've ever met who has achieved something great, they've worked hard. You also have to work smart. So it's really about making sure that you're working smart and doing the right things. And you do have to make time for rest and recovery and to recharge. This idea of I'm getting up at 3 a.m, I'm grinding. And then the other guy says, well, I'm getting up at 2 a.m, I'm grinding. At some point we need to sleep. We need to recharge. We need to refresh. We need time for creativity. But when you are passionate about something and you want to be great at something and you want to improve your craft, hard work will be part of that. Craftsmen and craftswomen, they work harder to get better at their craft, to master their craft, and then to produce a masterpiece. And that's just how it works. I think Michelangelo worked pretty hard, right, on the Sistine Chapel to create that. He worked pretty hard on the Statue of David to create that. So I think hard work is out of a desire of a love. Good point here. If you love it, you'll work to become great at it. If you don't love it, you'll never become great. So trying to work hard without love will cause fatigue and burnout. If you love what you do and you are working hard on that, then that passion, that love for what you're producing will be something that continues to drive you, and you'll produce something great. So love with the hard work is really in some ways not effortless, but it flows, whereas the other way it doesn't.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And speaking of hard work, you're a very hard worker. You're speaking at so many places. You're doing podcasts. You're writing books now. You just released one. You're working on another one. Where can people find more information about you and the work that you're doing?
I appreciate that. Yeah, I would say average talent and a lot of work ethic. So jongordon.com, Gordon.com, Gordon, and Twitter, Instagram at JONGordon11, at JONGordon11.
Awesome. We'll definitely check that out. We'll include a link in the description of this episode. Jon, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. And best of luck with all the success with your book.
I appreciate it. And you get the best background I've ever had in a podcast. I love that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we got to love the city of Pittsburgh in the background.
At night, it must be even better, right?
Yeah, maybe I'll have to try that the next time.
Yeah.
Do one at night.
That'd be pretty cool. It's pretty epic. All right, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.